Thanks for joining us today. I have three of some of the greatest people I know today to talk about some quotes on the Leadership Roundtable. I have joining us from the West, I got Adrian Valles. I have from the Detroit market, Jason Tagg, and from Virginia or slash North Carolina, we have Stephen Pinero, and we're going to be talking about some pretty cool quotes. And before we get into that, I want to give these folks a chance to introduce themselves. And Adrian is a limb restoration specialist. And if you don't know what that is, I will tell you it is not someone who makes limbs for people. And Adrian will tell us why. And she thought I was kidding with her the other day when I said, I think what you do is so amazing. And I was so excited about it. And then she started laughing really hard. And I was like, oh, I got something wrong. And she thought I was being funny. I was not being funny. So go ahead and take some time to introduce yourself.
Oh, thank you for having me, John. It was really funny. I love it though. Um, Save limbs on people, and I'm a big advocate for diabetes preventative care and awareness of peripheral arterial disease. And I'm the co-founder of Restore Me Wound Care, where we specialize in building wound care teams with physicians and hospitals to improve healing across the board and reduce the number of preventable amputations across the US. So that's how limbs by preventing all these or reducing the number of preventable amputations.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you for that. I think that's awesome. And I did, I talked about this the other day, but just so that everybody knows, I may someday be a customer if I don't get my eating under control, because my doctor keeps telling me I'm heading straight towards diabetes. So next we'll go to Jason. Go ahead and introduce yourself and what you do.
Hey, good morning, everybody. It's great to be here with the team. It's great to be here with the viewers. My name is Jason Tagg. I've been in the security industry for a majority of my career. I work for Guardian Alarm here in Southfield, Michigan. Work on commercial and residential security. I happen to run the remote video monitoring division of Guardian Alarm. I work with all types of industries, trucking, logistics, automotive, manufacturing. And what it is we have talking cameras. When people come on your property to try to break into your facility, steal your assets, or threaten your people, they hit our video analytics. And for lack of a better term, we have a brief conversation with them to help them make a better decision before they do something dumb. And it's amazing. Last year we had 6,922 positive deflections, 8 arrests, 127 dispatches. It's proactive security. So instead of seeing all the damage and loss, we get ahead of it and we stop it before it happens. So it's pretty awesome. It is my absolute passion. And great things are going on at Guardian Alarm, and it's afforded me the opportunity to be here with you fine folks today. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Jason. That's a very humble introduction to who Jason is. I am a former customer of Jason's from two different companies. And I would like to just point out very quickly that Jason is part of the catalyst for this whole thing I'm doing. And when I first met Jason, I remember very vividly the day. For those of you, for those of you who have been a vendor of mine, I cannot be friendly sometimes, and especially if I don't know the whole story. So Jason and a coworker of his come to my office, and I've always been into quotes. And what I've done is I've put up televisions all around my facilities that are hooked to computers that just my quotes go around. They're not my quotes. I don't say the stuff, but I steal them from other people. And Jason is out there taking pictures of my TV. I'm like, what is he doing? And I'm in a meeting and I see this happening. And finally, I'm like, what were you taking pictures of? And he starts showing me, he's like, I love this quote. I love this quote. And that was actually the catalyst that took me to LinkedIn to say, maybe other people will like that quote. And if you go back to 2017, Jason, on my LinkedIn, go all the way to the bottom, my very first ever LinkedIn post is a quote. And that quote went up not long after that conversation, and it has spawned into this. So thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Hey, listen, I remember that day vividly, and I think that we had some opportunities to work some stuff out. And I remember meeting you, and we connected immediately. And the quote that actually got me the most, and I was just fascinated by it, was a picture of a sidewalk that was designed, and then it talked about the customer experience where people had walked the path and cut that 45-degree angle and wore a pathway in the grass or whatever. And it was interesting because at that moment in time, I was new to Guardian Alarm, and there was a lot of legacy, behaviors, and being a change agent in a new environment is can be challenging, and can be viewed unfavorably at times because change is difficult for organizations. And what was so exciting about that was when I met John and we had an opportunity to do some transformational work, given on our maybe previous mode of operation, we just connected, and the energy that we volleyed back and forth till this day, you know, when one is high, one is low, not every day is easy. And it's the biggest thing here. And I think why we're all here today is, what do we learn? What are we learning? What are we being tested on? And so I want to thank John for, again, raising me up, and hopefully I've been able to reciprocate. And this platform here, I think, is brilliant because if you know John Doolan, you know what it means to be passionate, and you know what it means to be kind of brought into this fold. And really, the goal here is to inspire and motivate anybody that we come in contact with, because maybe we've been there and done that, but we keep learning every day. So John, I think this is amazing. And I just truly congratulate you. And I want to say how well you're doing in impacting so many people, and, reminding us that we're human, reminding us that it's not easy, and that we have to dig deep, and we have to be really mindful of not only, it's one thing for your own career, but I think we're all at a point now where we see the potential in others, and our goal is to pull that out of them and help them achieve their goals. And in some cases, maybe we didn't have that all the time in our journey, and so you try to be what maybe you aspired to have in a mentor, or you've had great mentors and you want to pay it forward. And so this is just a tremendous platform to do that. So thank you, and thank you all for allowing me to be here.
Thanks, Jason. That is very, very kind of you. So Steve and I met through, Steve tracked me down because of his involvement with ACP and my mentorship there with folks. ACP is a veteran mentoring organization. It's one of the better ones, in my opinion, for their professionalism, their structure, and how they do it. And Steve and I just immediately hit it off. I did not end up mentoring Steve based on ACP's rules, but we got a friendship out of it, so I think that's even better. So, Steve, I would like you to tell everybody who you are and what you do, because obviously, being both veterans, I think you're going to tell your story better than I can tell your story.
Thank you, John. And first off, to absolutely caveat what Jason was talking about, I'm absolutely honored to be included on this panel. I just want you all to know that I went open source and researched you all. And when I found out who I was going to be elected with, I honestly was like, not sure what I'm bringing to the table. We're just going to go ahead and we're just going to go wide open and see what happens. But it's absolutely my pleasure to meet you all. And again, I'm absolutely humbled that you feel that I have value to this platform, which I think is amazing with what you're doing, which is kind of how we connected when we talked. Getting into me real quick, I'm a 22-year Army veteran. I have done 7 tours in Afghanistan. I did 1 tour in Kosovo. I've successfully exited 103 perfectly good aircraft for no good reason other than I just love doing things like that. My military career has afforded me to live numerous places across this planet. Obviously, travel at the government's expense to some amazing places on this planet. But the biggest thing is what I found when I transitioned out. And I've been retired for 6 years now. And when I first retired, my plan was to stay retired and contribute back to kind of being a dad. And now I'm a grandfather. I have all adult children. So those are very different relationships than I had when it was, is your homework done? Is your bed made? Don't put your finger in the light socket kind of a thing. Like all those years, now I can have very different relationships. And one of the things that really challenged me the most is when I retired, I want to go finish my exercise science degree. So I went down to the Citadel in Charleston. And one of the reasons, that I went there was that seemed to be kind of a sterile environment. I wasn't really ready to go out into the world. So I found this happy medium at a military university. I worked in the strength and conditioning department upwards of 50 to 60 hours a week for free because I was in the process of getting my certification. I was an intern, and I was taking 15 credit hours a semester. And in the summertime, I was taking 6 hours to get my degree done. I even went so far as to drive the football equipment truck for a season because their driver decided he was getting a little too old. And so I took that show on the road. I'm like, hey, I can drive trucks like that. What do you need? So I did that. But what the challenge I'm talking about is building relationships with people in a very different way. The military kind of teaches you some specific ways to build relationships. Of course, there's echelons of leaderships and all that stuff. But when you're out in society again, it's how can I take that, mold it, still build relationships with people, and have them feel like that they are actually in a relationship with somebody that's not trying to dictate something or mandate something or whatever the case may be. It's like getting them to putting down the breadcrumbs, I call it, like I do with my kids, and get them to figure out some of these things on their own as it's their idea. I know what I want at the end, but how can I get them to follow along with me without them feeling like I took their hand and drug them to the solution? So my time at the Citadel was amazing. I went so far as to be a president of the Health and Human Performance Majors Club. So I was holding meetings, I was sharing experience, I was facilitating discussions with faculty. I did a little bit of research, and then COVID hit. And it just broke my heart because there were so many awesome things that was going on. And I kind of felt like I had my groove. And then I graduated online. I just kind of stayed retired. And then I went into networking again. And my biggest thing with all of this is I'm a lifelong learner. That's what I want to do. I'm an educated person. I want to be educated, and I want to surround myself with those kinds of people, which is why I get involved in stuff like that. So no, I'm not a big presence in the LinkedIn verse, but I can assure you, I am always on there poking around some rabbit hole, picking some nugget up. And then that's when I reach out and be like, hey, you said something that I feel is important in this way. Love to have a conversation with you about it. Because again, human engagement is kind of my passion. I love doing it. So that's also what has brought me here to be with you all today. And I hope I can continue that, past this platform.
Does anybody here on the panel think Stephen is just too darn young to be retired and have a massive amount of jealousy? I don't know if anybody else has that feeling like I do. It's like, wow.
Yeah, Jason, I was going to actually point that out. So I would just like to say, I'm not going to point out how old he is because that's his responsibility. But today is Stephen's birthday. And I would like to point out that Stephen is older than me. If you can't see, yeah. So I'm looking at this going, are you kidding me? Like,
yeah.
you're running through your tours of duty in one of the most dangerous places
Stressful
in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's no way, if you hadn't told us earlier, I would have been like, God, this guy is like 7 to 10 years younger than me. Anyway. So thank you for that, Stephen. I didn't want to diminish from what you said, but yeah, Jason, I was thinking the exact same thing. Like, there's no way this guy's accomplished this much. So,
well, since it's his birthday and it looks like Marty Moose is growing out of my head, we brought Marty the Moose to help celebrate as a party favor today. Jeez. Didn't plan it out very well.
I love it.
Yeah. All right. So I want to jump into, let me just start off by telling those who are watching, the process for this to come about is I blast out random messages to people who I think would come together and put on a good show for you. And then I ask them, just pick a random quote, send it to me. And I will tell you that this is episode 4 that I'm filming right now, although you're going to see them backwards. So you're seeing this before you see episode 3, and I'll tell you why later. But um, the quotes, I've strung them intentionally in order because that is how I think the message should come across. And it just happens to work out that we're going to go ladies first, because I think that the when you put all of this together, I don't know what your faith is, but I will tell you that it's something beyond me. All I did was ask these folks to pick their quote, and how these quotes came together will tie in. So, Adrian, we're going to start with you. I'm going to pop your quote up on the screen and read it, and then we'll let you tell us why that quote is important to you. The quote is, "If you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything." And I would like to just, before I let Adrian talk, I will say I did have to point out to her that not only is this a great quote, it is also not a bad country song.
Which I heard. I listened to, to the whole thing, and like the quote was just, it resonated, stand for what you believe in, the obvious, but more than that, I think what I got was purpose. We need to stand for a purpose, or you'll fall for anything. And I took it as a daily reminder. Every day you need to be reminded what you stand for, live with intent. And if you do that every day, if you have your purpose and you take it with you, you're not going to get, knocked down so easily. And falling down for anything just comes in setbacks, obstacles. And again, that daily reminder, if you have your purpose and you remember your passion, it's not going to be so easy to let anything bring you down. And anything can be in a form of those setbacks, people bringing you down, bullies. And I think the song you shared, John, kind of talked about the bullying part, and being standing up for yourself. And as a kid, kind of the video that you sent me portrayed that. And so I think it also stands for being yourself, stand up for yourself and for who you are and being unique. And once again, that'll allow you not to get knocked down, and to, nothing will bring you down. Because when it says anything, that word anything, it's so strong, because it could be anything. The smallest thing can knock you down or bring you down. And I think that was a big reminder that it's not just the big things. You could not stand for anything, because the little things aren't going to knock me down, but little things can bring you down. So you always have to have a purpose, intent, and stand for something. That's what I.
Yep. So when I saw that quote, obviously, I wasn't surprised, because I think I told you I wasn't surprised. But it was really neat to me, because I didn't have to ask you why, because I know your story. I knew why that quote meant a lot to you. And it was cool because, you and I have walked a very similar path in our journey. And to know how you landed where you are today and why you do what you do, to me, it speaks, so much more than just those words of standing for things you believe in, because you're out there and you're doing what you do so that other people can have a better life, which, of course, if anybody's been following me for any length of time, they know why you are in my circle, because that's the kind of people that I want to be surrounded by. So, Steve, I hate to catch you off guard while you're taking notes, but just curious if you wanted to chime in on that.
So I actually did, because there's a lot that her and I have in common. And again, which is when you put these panels together, ultimately, we all have our own kind of perception and expectations as to kind of where we are individually kind of going to do this thing. And of course, like I said, networking, engagement. And again, as Jason had said, I'm here to learn today. And that's why I'm super excited about this. So what I just heard Adrian saying is a lot of it has to do with, you have to be comfortable with yourself, and you have to know yourself, or else all of these other influences, how you can fall for anything, is going to be super easy, because you're going to be always open to suggestion. you're not going to have any real basis or a foundation to be like, you know what? Totally love what you're saying. Appreciate that that's your thing, but this is where I'm at. And, and it kind of goes into, you're going to be very hard pressed to influence me to change what I stand for. You got to come with something really good if you want me to start changing the bricks in my foundation or kind of rearranging some of my belief system, which kind of also goes into that whole thing of, I'm a big proponent of beliefs versus philosophies. And again, when you talk about purpose and living your life with intent, those are very strong, specific, and they are very deeply rooted. And it's going to be very hard for somebody to come in with some kind of, shooting from the hip or some trendy philosophy, which is not really what's rooted in your heart. That's rooted in your brain to get me to change what my heart is telling me I need to be at on a daily basis and how I govern myself. So that's kind of where I was at with her quote. And as I was taking little notes down, kind of the main points that she was highlighting from why she picked that.
Yeah, and I don't want anybody to think I'm picking on you for taking notes, because I actually admire that. And obviously, I'm keeping notes too, so that I don't forget to mention something later. Yep. Yeah. But again, another reason why you all are in my circle, because we all do the same thing. So to me, it's always an honor when I see someone taking notes, because that tells me that what is being said in this conversation is important to you. So thank you for that. Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to echo the sentiments of Steve. I think that, as I was listening to Adrienne and her perspective, so first and foremost, you have to know yourself, but you also have to learn yourself, right? And you have to seek to understand. And when you kind of get to that point in your life where you're doing that consistently and you do have your foundation, but that's what's so beautiful about the world we live in. We can share, we can listen, we can learn. And if we disagree on certain things, that's okay. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. Agree to disagree. I mean, that's what makes us that's what makes none of us all agree on everything here, but we have so many commonalities. I think, to take it a step further with Adrienne, I'm a girl dad, and to listen to her empowerment and her confidence in really, she said, standing up to the bullies. I'm big on self-authorization. I'd rather beg for forgiveness than ask for permission, because, listen, we got to get things done. And, we can't default to the way we've always done things. Right. And so when we talk about my quote, you'll understand that I'll share a little bit more color around that. But, that confidence, that strength, that empowerment, and most importantly, the relentless determination and persistence to achieve your goals and to break through the obstacles. My dad always used to say, it's just one more brick you got to break through in the wall, and you do it with a smile, and it becomes part of your brand, and people take notice of that. They may not acknowledge it, but they take notice of that. And more times than not, they will align behind you, whether directly or indirectly, because sometimes you have to challenge the status quo. Sometimes you have to show your audience the art of the possible, and sometimes it goes against your instincts, your intuition. But when you know what's right, and you believe in something, by gosh, that empowerment is infectious. So I felt that just hearing her kind of explanation. So I really appreciate that, and I know that I'm going to have a productive Saturday because of it.
Nice. Thanks, Jason. Well, good transition, because you're up next. And I want to introduce this by saying I've known Jason for a while. I followed him on social media. Turns out Jason and I have friends in common. Some folks that are very close to him have become close to me. We go to church together. And so I was actually seeing Jason's life before I knew I was seeing Jason's life, because I knew Jason first from work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started seeing these social media posts of people I'm friends with at church. I'm like, that guy looks familiar. Who's this Jason Vacation guy? And so finally I sent him a text message. I'm like, are you Jason Vacation? And
That's funny.
so the neat thing about this is, what I love about Jason is that he has such a strong role model. And so his quote actually comes from this role model. And Jason, I'm going to leave it to you to tell the story because I don't want to steal from it. So
No,
this,
listen, I appreciate that. This is so near and dear to my heart. And I saw it on my father's desk when I was a child. And it was there and I read it and I didn't understand it. I just was like, what? And so, and then my another quote that my dad said was attitude is everything. And I was like, kick rocks, man. I'm 14. Leave me alone. My attitude is my attitude. And so as we go through this journey, this is my father and this is me. And as a tribute to my dad, college was great and school was great, but I learned so much from him by watching and observing. And he took the time to share his imagination. Although my dad is not an expressive guy, he's very reserved, very hard worker, hard work ethic, and I was raised that way. So the whole Jason Vacation name was one day I was in the pool and I actually exhaled and I was like, I need to do more of this because I work so hard but it's my passion. I don't have hobbies. And so I love my work. And part of my job and really a testament to my career has been I see opportunity everywhere. And I'm not just saying that to be some sort of sales cliche because I made the journey from sales to operations in some sort of a hybrid fashion in my career. But he who attempts the ridiculous can achieve the impossible. Many times when you have ideas or you have passions, people will discount it, or maybe it's even a threat to them. And they won't embark. They won't put themselves out there. They won't take the risk. When everybody's going left, my dad and I probably would go to the right. He would probably tell you, or vice versa. We don't follow the crowd, and we like a good challenge too. But if we believe in it and it's the right thing to do, and you know that you can make a positive impact on the organization, on maybe individuals, or on the community, whatever the case is, don't let anybody tell you you can't, just like Adrian was talking about, to kind of thread the two together. And so I believe that in all my ridiculousness, and I'm so grateful for the leaders that I've worked for, they've allowed me to be myself. They've allowed me to put myself out there. They see something, they see the passion that's just deep rooted in my core being. And I want to make positive changes. I want to make a positive impact. And my personal mission is, I've heard the 3-foot rule, like anybody that comes within 3 foot, should be a customer. I'm like, no, man, anybody that comes in 3 foot of Jason Tag or Jason Vacation, as he eloquently said it. I want to make a meaningful impact. I want people to remember that interaction for what it's worth. And my grandfather also was that way. So, I've got these role models that I grew up with where they quietly gave, they did things in a very stealth manner. They didn't want attention for it, but by God, they made a difference in people's lives. They made a difference in careers of people. They made a difference in their organizations. And so as you're going through your journey, you encounter some of these people as an adult, and I hear some of that feedback. It makes me very proud. Makes me very proud that I've been able to glean a lot of those attributes and take them to the next level too, because, well, like I said, people let me be me, and I'm a bit of a goofball. I do put myself out there. I don't take myself seriously because life's too short, and we got to have fun too. And that's what's really cool about Guardian Alarm is one of our core principles is have fun, and through that culture and being a change agent and being a very culture based ambassador, sometimes you got to make it okay for others to have a little fun, to put themselves out there. And what's the most rewarding as a leader is when they do that and they have breakthroughs and you see their brand start to ascend and you start to see them get comfortable in their skin in doing what they believe in and following their passion. The conversation changes. The conversation expands in the culture. And so I would say over my last 5 years at Guardian Alarm, both personally and professionally, because I've had my challenges. John will tell you, I've had my challenges, and I had to step back and change my approach, and I had to make sure that I was doing the right things. Number one, by my dad, by my grandpa, doing all the right things that I've taught, and I'll tell you, relentless determination, persistence, but most importantly, he who attempts the ridiculous can achieve the impossible. It's done with care. It's done with compassion, because to put yourself out there, to believe in something so much, and like I said, when you got to go against the masses and you've got to be a change agent, it takes a while to get people to believe, because a lot of times people think it's you trying to get attention, it's you trying to be on me type thing, and they don't realize that you're doing it for the greater good of the organization, for the company. And when that happens, like I said, the conversation changes, and it's a beautiful thing. And so I love to celebrate those breakthroughs, whether it's on the ops side, whether it's on the sales side. We're one team, and that's the thing. We may not always disagree, but we have some healthy debates, and as long as we're learning from each other, and people start to kind of feel comfortable being uncomfortable, attempting the ridiculous to achieve the impossible, is very special, very meaningful. And like I said, I'm very grateful for my father for instilling that in me, and giving me the tools to be able to do it differently than he did, not the same way, but to see where it's got me today. It's something that I'll always appreciate, and I feel a responsibility to pay it forward.
Thank you, Jason. I'm going to come back to everything you just said. I want to open it up to Adrian first. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I love it. I love that it came from your dad and, your grandfather. That's just awesome. And mostly the two of my favorite words, ridiculous and impossible. Like, that's me. Because I feel ridiculous all the time.
Yeah.
But I think kind of what hit me was my company, a startup.
Yes.
YouTube ridiculous.
Yes.
But it's like that organized chaos, as they say. You're out there doing things every day, and it feels ridiculous, but that's how you are going to reach the impossible, because that's why it's called impossible until it's done. So I love that. And also, I think if you don't feel ridiculous, then there's a problem. When things are just smooth, and that was where we started, and that's why we broke off and we went entrepreneur and did our own thing. And I just think that's the big takeaway. You got to feel a little ridiculous. You got to feel that you're changing things and stirring things up. Otherwise, you're not, you're not doing anything. So,
and I think you use that perception to your advantage, because I can tell you absolutely with 100% certainty, there's been a lot of people in the room or at the table with me that under their breath, they're like, God, he's ridiculous. And listen, that's my special sauce, man. The minute that I get you to buy in that I'm ridiculous, man, that's the motivation. Let's charge the mountain. But what they don't know is that I'm going to bring them with me, and they're going to be a part of that transition, whether they know it or not. And so that's where at first they're looking at you as maybe a threat. I don't want to speculate, but oh, here we go again, or some blowhard, over-inspired and motivated individual. But then I think when they realize the methodology and the tact, this is kind of funny. This made me laugh the other day. One of our sales reps, he had a customer interaction, and we got involved to help him out, much like I did when I met John. And I try to help everybody in the organization. There's no silos. I mean, I align to Guardian Alarm, and that's a great thing to have a culture like that. But he said, I love it when a plan comes together. I'll net it out for you. And I got a kick out of that, because my old man and I used to sit and watch the A-Team together, when I was a kid, right? And he sends that response that he sent. I didn't expect a response. I thought it was a funny, and I wrote LOL that made me laugh out loud. He sent me back a picture of the A-Team, and I never thought in my mind, he's like, you remind me of a young Hannibal, the older guy with the cigar. And I thought that was a really nice compliment, because as unorthodox as he was, right, and ridiculous as he was, the results are there, and you accomplished your missions, and you did it as a team, not as individuals, but as a team. And so I just kind of sat back and I thought, holy cow, I'm way too young to look like George Papard, but I appreciate the sentiment. You know what I mean? At least I'd like to think I'm not. But and he sent me the little image, and that meant a lot to me. I appreciated that.
So I won't break your heart to tell you exactly how old George Picard was when they filmed the A-Team. But we'll move on to Steve. Steve, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I did, because I'm flipping through my pages here and I'm taking notes, and Jason and Adrian have both tapped on a couple things, and I just had a light bulb moment.
Yes,
And
that's what it's all about, brother.
And the first light bulb moment is, I'm a person that believes that everything in the universe is always, it's going around each other. Okay, there's energy, things of that nature. But the funny thing is when it comes to if I was to attach a psychological standpoint to how I kind of do business and how I run myself, okay, how I govern myself and my system and my codes, I smushed together about 5 things from the behaviorist, humanist, cognitive, and the constructivism kind of philosophies. And imagine a big Venn diagram, and there's a bunch of stuff in the middle. So having said that, I counted, Jason, that you said culture about 4 times. And that's one of the reasons why I think I'm here today and our quotes are together, and how John just had this vision to bring the 3 of us together with him, is because we've all been talking about the same thing, said differently, same concept though. And so my quote is going to feed right into that. And we're just going to keep the ball rolling and put a lot of big cherries on top of this whole Sunday we've had. The other thing is you touched on something that John and I talked about when we first talked. And that was, how can I impact somebody today as I go through my day? Whether it's the car next to you, an interaction, in a restaurant, or it's just my daily goings on, running into people all the time. How can I impact them? Is there an opportunity to do that? So when you're talking about your rule of 3 feet kind of a thing, I totally understood that. It's like, if you're in my space, I have an opportunity and I'm going to do something with it, and to Adrian's point, it's only impossible if you don't try it. So the thing about when she was talking about her entrepreneurial goal is, funny thing about this, that's kind of in the phase I'm in right now. I kind of went on the LinkedIn verse a few months ago, and I'm like, I'm going to go, connect with people, because I'm a logistician by actual trade in the military petroleum operations, to be specific. I just was very blessed to do a whole lot of other cool stuff while I was doing that thing. But I've you know what? Maybe that's what I need to be doing. I need to have a business. I need to start something. I want to create a space where I can bring people in, and now I can start impacting them, and not only affect them, but also effect them. And that goes back into culture. How do we build that?
Yes.
Okay. And so again, the 3 of us are all together now for a reason. So I'm going to go ahead and again, don't be surprised. I'm going to start blowing up emails. I'm going to be like, hey, I want to keep this thing going, because, I do.
Let's go.
I've got some things going, I do have PTSD, being vulnerable. I've got some issues from my time in the military. So I got to hit stuff while the iron's hot, or it goes into the land of fog, and I may not ever get it back. But the point being is, you can see how all these things came together, because that's all what we're going to talk about. I'm going to continue to pound it down, is that culture. And you talk about self-authorization, having people discover things on their own. The 3 of us are going to just continually, through this conversation, be building on all of our same ideas, because we're all saying the same thing, just from a different vantage point, because of where we are right now and the season we're in with all of these things. So the light bulb went on. I found out why we're all connected now. So that's what I think. I'm sticking to it.
So I'm going to, I got to make some quick notes while I am. All right. So I'm going to tell you guys a very quick story. I like to plant little Easter eggs in these videos to see who's really watching, because generally when I plant those, I will get somebody that catches it, and they're like, I got you on that. So Steve, while you're talking, I was thinking about this guy. I don't know if you are connected to him yet, but you will absolutely be, because I'm going to tag him in this video. Boris Panov is a logistics guy I connected with out of Greece. He is the funniest logistics guy I know, but he's constantly posting memes about how, you know, people in logistics age so much faster. And you've proven him wrong. So Boris, that's for you. And then Sarah, she works with BNI. It's a
Yeah.
it's a networking group. You guys,
Mhm.
you probably know her because
Yep.
I've connected with her. Well, she has referred to me as a super connector because I'm just I'm that guy in the elevator sparking up conversations with all these people all over the world. And this is interesting because I hope that you all connect, and I hope that you all pay attention to each other's stories, because there's a lot of good that we can do together as a team. That um, specifically having such a worldwide audience now with LinkedIn, and you know, there's a lot of people like Steve who won't necessarily get out there and say, "This is who I am," you know, and share their story, but they'll get out there and they'll read everybody else's story. And what they don't realize is that engagement helps. When you hover over somebody's post and you let that spread out and you read it, that goes into your LinkedIn database. And the reality with LinkedIn is, however many followers you have, however much engagement you have, that's your currency out there.
Mhm.
So I would love a million people like Steve who don't even follow me. I don't care. Don't connect with me. I don't care. But read my stuff, hover over it, because those stats count, and
Mhm.
that those stats help my stuff get to more people. Now, please follow, please connect. I'm totally cool with that too. Um, but you know, what was really neat to me, Jason, was there's another guy. I'm going to mention his name. I got to write him down because one time I forgot to tag him. But there's a guy that I've connected with who has become literally like a brother to me. And we text, we talk multiple times throughout the week, and we are just so darn aligned. And when I see him being successful, it just makes me so happy.
Yes.
And he's got a message that I absolutely love, and he can tell it so much better than I can. And his name is Trevor Martin, and I know you two have become connected as well.
Yeah.
And you know, I my call this morning was with him. You know, it's not uncommon for Trevor and I to be on a call on a Saturday morning.
And,
Um,
and and Trevor is literally embodied relentless determination and just believes in everything he does, and his confidence jumps right off the page, and it grabbed me. And then I saw your alignment, and I was like, I got to check this guy out because he's throwing up the horns all the time. And I love it because LinkedIn is, so many fancy folks on LinkedIn. Everyone's a big shot. And it's like, pump the brakes, folks. Like, be human, right? We all need to be more human. And so seeing Trevor, everyone's going left, Trevor's going right. And I was like, my man, let's go. This is what I'm talking about. Because I think sometimes we fall into that trap. And this is the problem with social media. And, that like button is a killer. And we know the impact it has. And some people psychologically, a lot of the young kids are, kind of defining themselves. And you see a lot of, unfortunate fallout. And what I love about him is, and I like this too. I don't care if I get one like, as long as they hit that message and they know where I'm coming from, and they don't have to like it. I I'm okay with it, because again, I'm being me, and I appreciate the opportunity to be me, and I'm not going to apologize because I'm not a Wharton School guy. I'm, my initials, people call me JT, but my buddies call me OJT because I get in the situation, I figure it out, and let's go. Get on my back, we're gonna win. And that's what I liked about him. And so that spirit, that enthusiasm just radiated with me because he's not what I want to say. He's not playing the game to get the likes. He's being his authentic self and his passions, and it gives you a different perspective. And also, most importantly, and this is what's so beautiful about what we're doing today, we get to be ourselves. You get to see the human side of us. Don't judge how smart I am on my post about my industry or anything like that. Be a good human being. tell your story, get to know, and I'd like to see more people get a little bit more relaxed and let their authentic self come through. But I also feel like a lot of people pander to their superiors on LinkedIn and to show how smart they are, or they're pushing the company brand. I tell you what, I've done some experiments and nobody cares about that stuff. We all are in this thing together. We all have our insecurities. We all have our strengths and our weaknesses. And when you accept those and you kind of own them, like, people appreciate that far more, because we're all putting so much pressure on ourselves to be perfect, to be probably something that we're not. And when we get to that point in our lives and we make that realization, I try to teach that to young people because I suffered from it. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm going to give you a little nugget about Jason. Till this day, I don't even feel like I deserve to be in this room. And I'll tell you why that is. I never understood it. I thought it was just an innate insecurity. I thought it was something that was just kind of a personality quirk. Okay. And then I saw a speech, and don't make fun of me, but I saw that Oscar speech with Matthew McConaughey, and people thought he was kidding around at first. And then they started to listen to him because the tone changed. And he was talking about chasing his best version of himself, right? And he said, when I'm 35, man, I'm 25, I got to chase it at 30. And when I got to 30, he's like, man, I'm not even close. Now I'm chasing that 35-year-old, that 45-year-old, and, I'm chasing that 50-year-old. And so not being complacent, I always say to my colleagues, complacency is not a member of this team. And I believe in that because it can filter in, and people can get negative and suck you down, and I'm sure I've done that to them. I'm going to own it, right? But when you're chasing that version of yourself, you're never going to become overconfident, imposter syndrome, right? You don't want to deal with that type of stuff. You really want to make sure you're just always moving forward. And I think, Steve and Adrian and John, I think you guys would all agree that we're not even close. Yes, we're doing the right things and we're stacking the lessons and we're learning and we're getting better. But this whole journey, you got to keep getting better, and you got to keep making mistakes, and it's got to be okay to make mistakes. You got to give yourself some grace. And I tell you, moving from kind of the sales world into the operational world, I had to deal with some stuff, and I was working with HR, and everyone always likes to say, "Oh, this isn't my first rodeo. I know what I'm doing." And I walked in and I literally go, "Hey guys, this is literally my first rodeo. I don't know what I'm doing." And they kind of laughed at me because that's not something that they would think would come out of my mouth. But I had to surrender myself to their expertise. I had to say, "Jennifer, Megan, help me out of here, man. Walk me through this." And they were so not only great about it, but they appreciated the fact that I could be vulnerable, that I could say, "This isn't my first rodeo. I don't know." And I raised my hand. And one of my dearest, greatest mentors, we just celebrated her 2-year passing last week, Neha Yale. She always taught me, never be afraid to ask for help. It's kind of like the old cliche about men not asking for directions, right? Just stubbornly driving and wandering aimlessly. But she always told me, and she would say that about others too, like, you need to ask for help. You can't go it alone. And so that's the thing, is when you can be vulnerable. And that is the tipping point. When people thought I was doing things for me or my brand or trying to ascend levels, they started to realize the vulnerability, my ridiculousness, let's call it, by maybe some of the fancy folks out there in the LinkedIn world. I was able to ingratiate myself to them because I'm no different than them. And I'm okay with my weaknesses. And what was great about that is they started to let go of theirs. They started to share. And when we start sharing like this, it's a beautiful thing. And I think we, especially as men, we're kind of taught to keep it in and not talk about this stuff. And it's great because I've actually adopted, and John knows this. I make sure that when I say goodbye to people, my sign off is love you. And I'll say that to my buddies. I'll say it to to strangers. I was just, at Woodward Sports in the studio the other day, and I saw Ryan Armani and Tom Mazaway, Maz, as you guys know him on the radio for many years, great guys. And, you know, we just love you, man. Love you. And we're all trying to help each other out, support each other and raise each other up. And so I challenge every one of you, start saying, I love you. Love you. You know what I mean? When you say goodbye, because there's going to come a time when we don't get a chance to say those things. We wish we said those things. And I'm making sure that every day of the week, I'm making sure I let everybody know in my life, whether I met them a day ago or, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Love you, man. Love you. And make sure you're doing that.
Thanks, Jason. I think that I appreciate that, and I made a note. We're going to do a separate show all about that because as you're talking, and I'm having a Steve light bulb moment. I'm like, you know what? I've got stickies all over my desk this morning. So, Jason, I'm going to come back to you at the end because I want to tie some things up at the end of some things you've said. But I do want to jump into Steve's quote because I think it's perfect timing right now with what we're talking about. And so I'm going to go ahead and share. While I'm doing this, I do want to point out Steve did actually give me a lot more content than I asked for. And Steve, I want to say I loved every bit of what you shared, but I felt like based on all the other things that came in, this quote is the best for this conversation. So that quote is, don't tell people how to do things, tell them what to do, and let them surprise you with their results. So Steve, take it away.
All right. Awesome. And yeah, just real quick before we get started, Jason, you and I are definitely going to have a conversation because
yes,
we have a lot of things to talk about with the LinkedIn verse and imposter syndrome. And
yeah, I love it.
Are we really as not qualified as we think we are?
I know, right?
Time is valuable. Just a lot of stuff. So anyway,
yes, sir. And I look forward to that conversation. Yes.
Oh yeah. So the reason why I sent this quote to John, if one of my three, is because it is some stuff that he and I have talked about before. It also plays into a lot of the stuff I see, all this stuff flying around on not just LinkedIn. I mean, take your pick. Facebook and there's a lot of interactions that we have with people that are not on social media. They're literally face-to-face interactions. And if I could go back and do my 22 years of the military over again, having a way better understanding of this concept now, I mean, who knows what, would have transpired in that point. Big reason why I picked this, because I think right now with today's, not to get on a soapbox, but there's a lot of people, everybody wants to define something because they're basing it off of their comfort with it and how they're going to use it versus there's a definition, and I'm going to be open to molding myself a little bit differently because this is the definition, whatever that might be. Doesn't mean I'm going to put myself in a box. It just means, because if I start twisting stuff around, then I'm not going to be comfortable being uncomfortable. I'm just going to be comfortable being comfortable all the time. And then I just stagnate because I'm just going to rearrange the goalposts so they meet my standards and my, my own expectations and my own perceived abilities. And I'm not going to be ridiculous. I'm not going to be able to do the impossible because I've just shifted everything to stay comfortable and right where they are. So the key leadership philosophies or the capabilities that I think that my quote brings into is vulnerability first. We've already talked about that. In order for a leader to say, hey, so I need you to do, let me know when it's done. Again, I'm summarizing. Of course, not everybody's quite that loose with their leadership, but in essence, I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I want you to go take, and see what comes back. Because what I just did is I just gave those individuals or individual the next thing, which is I gave them an opportunity to own their piece of this thing, whatever X is, a project, a task, an idea, a marketing, sales, whatever it is I need them to do. If I give them the ownership, then they're going to be way more likely to buy in to the culture and help me create that culture as well. I am giving them a stake in the leadership model, which ultimately I would like to feel that they have now feel like they have a stake in the organization or the department, whatever the case may be. So by doing that, I'm facilitating ownership and vulnerability, and I'm giving and again, I'm giving them their breadcrumbs so they don't feel like they're being dictated and pulled to the objective. They're following these key things, and I'm letting them model it however they want. Now, obviously, there's a certain little bit of exceptions to everything, but the biggest thing is I'm more than willing to be vulnerable to the results of the individual or individuals that I gave this latitude with, and let them and show them I believe in them. And to my bosses, let's say, because we all have a boss somewhere, as opposed so they can have the room to grow and self-discover, as you had mentioned before, Jason, self-discover and have these breakthroughs on their own.
Yes.
So that's why I like this quote so much, is because I think it brings a lot of that stuff in there. There's no reason for me to, unless the situation specifically dictates that I need to give you the parameters, how they're going to get done, and the time they need to be done in, I should be able to let you accomplish this thing within your scope of education, within your scope of your job duty description. You also don't want to set people up for failure. You don't want to throw them out there willy-nilly and then just all kind of things just don't go the way you would like them to have went. That falls back on me, because did I train you? Were you equipped? Have I put you in a safe environment? All of these things have to be laid down first so they can go and do this thing that you're just going to let them go do and surprise me with your results. So again, I have to know myself first. I have to know the capabilities of my team, and then I can let them go do X and just sit back and watch it all come together. So that's kind of where I picked that quote from and what that resonates with me. And those are just some of the key things. One thing I commented, I think John and I got to talk back and forth on episode 1. One of the other reasons why I picked this quote is because I believe that, and this is what my practice, I actually practice this, which is one of the stalwarts in some of my beacons as I go through, leading myself, my children, being a father, it all factors in. I'm facilitating building leaders for the future, because if I continue to mandate things and dictate things and always keep a left and right limit, and I always keep control of the results or the process, then I'm just creating followers. And then I become the single point of failure in any of these plans, any of these things that the company or the department is working on. Logistics, especially. Logistics, you got to have, in my opinion, in logistics, you got to have some free thinkers, adaptable. They have got to be able to flex, solve problems on the fly, and they got to be able to handle data, and if I'm always the one controlling that, then I always got to get the phone call. It's always me.
You're a hub to everything.
Exactly. And that can't happen. That's not a successful organization, because now all I'm doing is I'm just a manager now. I'm actually not a leader. I'm a manager, and leaders and managers are two very different things. So that's another reason why I picked this quote, is because if I feel that in leading your group of individuals this way, you are actually building leaders, and they want to build themselves up as leaders. Otherwise, you're just creating followers over and over and over again. And that's just a very stagnant kind of a pond water environment in your department. And I think that's where a lot of people's distaste for their employment comes from. They can't think. They come to work every day with a specific set of parameters, rinse it, repeat it. And, and again, I know myself, Steve Purnell's brain has got to be stimulated. If you're not coming at me and getting inside my head and making me do things and jump around and having some mental agility, probably going to lose me pretty quick. So
Yeah.
Um,
You know,
And
Steve,
I think it's all, I mean, John, I'm hearing just total empowerment, right?
Mhm.
You're empowering people, you know, and again, you guys, you know, being, you know, military, ex-military, you know, in my wanting to understand that, you know that I got excited about Jocko Willink and Leif Babin,
Mhm.
extreme ownership,
Yeah.
and when I was introduced to that, Brent Ewell, who's our CEO, he brought that to the organization, and Neha and I, my former mentor, we did a deep dive on that, and it was so. What I learned, the number one thing I learned so much from that because again, understanding the military mindset, which is fascinating to me. Um, and again, thank you guys for your service because you look at what we do in our daily lives and you see what it is to kind of be in those situations and you have to make life or death decisions at times. It's amazing. And so to kind of bring that back to the business world, the one thing that I took away from this, and they talked about it, is, I mentioned seeking to understand, but listening to the most junior as well as the most senior person in the room. And I'll tell you, the mistake that I made was thinking young people or people that hadn't had the experiences I had just didn't understand it. And what I was doing is I was limiting myself to having a new perspective, having new eyes on this situation. And so that was part of my aha moment, right? Is that, wait a minute, wow, you need to listen to everybody. You need to, nobody on this panel, nobody in this audience got to where they are by not listening, by not being educated by those around them. And it's so funny because now with LinkedIn and everything, everyone's like, hey man, you guys are communicating too much to me. They're kind of controlling the amount of information because we are getting a lot of information. But when it comes to your own people, it's opening up your mind to kind of seek to understand. And I learned that from Stephen Covey. I remember, reading that book, and that just literally pierced my heart because it was something that I didn't do very well young in my career, in seeking to understand and seeking to learn from others because not all of us have the same perception, the same experience, and that diversity of thought, that diversity of experience is so critical. And that's where also too, in an organization, man, you can knock down silos really quickly. If you're in a siloed organization, when you reach across the aisle, when you're take this cross-functional approach and you start to really bring people, more people, different people to the table, um, that's a community aha moment at that point in
yeah,
time.
it
Sure.
is, Jason, and I want to jump in real quick because we didn't get a chance to talk about this, but I want to highlight Adrian's journey just a little bit, and I'm really curious about her perspective on this because literally the life story of started off as an hourly worker and now owns her own business, but went through the logistics path as well to get
Oh,
there. And um, Adrian knows this because I vented to her about this, but I'm just going to go ahead and put this out there on YouTube as well. That I'm a firm believer in supporting and developing women in logistics, women in leadership. As a girl dad myself, it's personally important to me. But as I sit in these meetings and I look around and I see so many people who look like me, this quote specifically, Adrian, I will shut up and let you talk because I'm curious on your take of this coming up as a woman in the business world and a woman in a warehouse.
Okay, thank you. Well, I did start in logistics, which is totally different than the healthcare, but it's important because it was tough. I started off at 4 a.m. in a warehouse job with, majority, but climbed up, to supervisor and then transitioned to marketing and sales, which led me to healthcare. And I love where I'm at now. And so what I got from it right away was the element of surprise. Surprise, it's scary sometimes, but it's fun. And if you just let people surprise you, sit back and let them do their thing, and hopefully you'll be pleasantly surprised and you'll discover a new way of doing things. And like you mentioned, that aha moment where
Mhm.
oh, they're doing it in a more efficient way, or it's just a way that works better for you. And I see why this works for me, that works for you. And the other thing too is giving them full expression, giving your employees or your coworkers or the people you're mentoring full autonomy to be able to, do things to be of value, like you mentioned. Well, and I know I looked into a researcher's study that was done once with a company with high turnover. And I think what they came down to was the ones that were staying and being more productive were the ones who were not going to that default setting. And it was literally the default setting, because they found out the ones who had applied through the default, like Chrome or whatever it was, those were the ones that continue to do things on the default setting and didn't think outside the box and ended up leaving and weren't as productive. Whereas the people that were, high performers and doing well and moving up the ladder, when they went down to look at how they first applied for the position, they didn't use the default setting. They were actually going and using a different, platform. And that just spoke a little bit to their personalities and how they were, and to what we're talking about, that when you let people have full autonomy, think outside the box, express themselves, they're going to surprise you. And it hopefully will be a good surprise, or it'll be a shock, and then we fix it, and then it's better to find out that way than to ask them to do it your way and it's still the wrong way because it's not the right way for them. I really like that. And the way you all brought it, I liked one, accountability on us, that if we're not letting them do it their way and express themselves, it's going to fall back on us. That's and not be leaders. And again, kind of putting all the accountability on us when we should, let them be accountable for their own work. But how can we do that if we're giving them the directions then? And the other thing is vulnerability. I absolutely love that. I hadn't thought of it that way. It does take vulnerability. It's scary. And maybe I hadn't thought of that. And I like that, maybe because I allow people, I'm okay with that. I give them free reign. But it could be scary, especially when it's your business, your baby, and you're giving that responsibility to somebody else and you want to tell them exactly how to do it. But that's part of being a good leader. You have faith in yourself that you're leading them well, and you have to have faith in them even before you start to lead, that you're going to be a good leader in finding out how. So I loved it.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. And one of the, I guess I love what you're saying from the perspective of, I ask my daughter this a lot. When things don't happen the way I think they should have happened, I'll say, "Tell me what you were thinking there." And I've had to learn how to say that, because how you say that has a completely different outcome on the answer you get. And that has been my relationship with my youngest daughter has been one of the best gifts to my leadership, because she is way smarter than me, and she can hear things, and she pulls so many different things from that. And it's changed the way I go about things now, when I'm having conversations with folks and I'm seeing something that I'm like, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. How did that end up like that? And I'll say, "Tell me what you're thinking." And I've got to say it in a real jovial way to actually make them feel comfortable telling me. And to your point, Adrian, I actually learn when I shut up. I'm like, "Oh, actually, everything you've just said, it makes complete sense to me. Now I understand every obstacle you had to overcome, and I know how that turned out the way it did. And I don't know that I could have done it better." And so it may not have been the result we're looking for, but I can agree with what happened. And so that the quote was powerful to me, because, and Steve, I was shocked actually that you shared that quote, because 22 years in the Army, being told what to do, how to do, when to do. I'm more impressed with you after this call and seeing that quote yesterday, because it's not easy for somebody to walk out of 22 years of being told everything. And if you guys aren't aware, you get told when to eat, you get told what to eat, you get told how to eat it and how fast can you eat it. And to see, I know you've had 6 years of adjusting, so I'm not trying to diminish your growth, but I think it's cool to know that that's your leadership style, to say, just get out there and do it. Let's see what happens.
And John, you just literally, and I don't know if anybody thought about this when they read the quote ahead of time. You just gave some really important context, much like you asked your daughter, what were you thinking there? Okay. Every understanding things contextually is something that we can all do a better job of, because again, for the big shots in LinkedIn land, tell people what to do, and oh my God, this guy's going to tell them what to do. Like, you got to seek to understand, what does he mean by that? And what he meant by that was giving them enough information to kind of be dangerous, but let them kind of explore and discover on their own. And again, you've got the goalpost, you got the guardrails, for them. And again, you're going to own it, but you're going to let them go down this kind of discovery path themselves. So you're guiding them. It's guidance. It's not telling them what to do. But that's the kind of the illusion that I see, or kind of the misinterpretation of a lot of things that LinkedIn. People automatically want to respond and try to debate you based on your statement or your quote, rather than trying to seek to understand, to say, hey, Steve, tell them what to do. Can you tell me what that means a little bit more? And then all of a sudden now you read that quote, and John just articulated perfectly what it was like in the military, right? And so you're not saying, hey, you're controlling everything they're doing, but you're giving them enough information to go set them on a path of empowerment, right? To go and learn and discover, and again, hopefully hit their marks, have the breakthrough. But you do that, you'll work with them over time, and it is a journey, right? It's not a one and done, it's constant. But this is where I think with LinkedIn, everybody's so literal. And that's what's so nice about this platform here, is you get to learn the person, you understand the perception, you understand the context and their paradigm. And so those words represent something different than just the words that some stranger is reading and is like, oh, well, don't tell them what to do, you should do this. That's the beauty of what John, the precursor to this entire presentation, was you gotta seek to understand. You gotta really get in there. So people are asking him questions about his quotes. People are in Steve, you're doing the same thing. You're going around like, what do you mean by that? That's got my attention. That to me is really awesome that you guys are doing that, because that's when you're going to glean the lessons. That's when you're going to really get down to the special sauce, and you're going to get to the kind of the core of the Steves, the Adrians, the Jasons, the Johns, and instead of just kind of, I guess they're trolls, whatever you call them out there these days, and they just want to kind of stir the pot and tell you they're smarter than you are, and do all that stuff, which I don't appreciate. And so that's what I like to see, when people are genuinely and sincerely, what do you mean by that? Tell me more. And I love the idea when you're talking with your children, because in my day, and part of my work ethic is, my dad was a no guy. No, if you got in trouble, the adult's the adult, you're the kid, shut up, go to your room, you're grounded. And I love the fact today that, wait a minute, and again, we're not, as parents, not friends of our children, but parents, what were you thinking? And help teach that lesson and walk them back where they should have zigged when they should have zagged. And it's really nice to see that type of interaction, because it builds that synergy, that communication, so that as we go through life, we're having more dialogue with not only our children, but we're having more constructive dialogue with our peers, instead of everybody being threatened by one another in their own career aspirational goals. You know what I'm saying? So, so I think that's really, really awesome lesson to take away from today, to apply those lessons in our day-to-day work life.
One of the things that I had to, and again, when I retired and I had way more time to start thinking about things and coming up with these assessments of myself, especially where my children are concerned, and now I'm a grandfather. So in about another couple of years, when Cooper and I can start actually having a conversation in English as opposed to 11-month-old language,
you're gibberish.
There's those times where, you're not, information is much easier digested if you can be specific. So when you ask somebody, talk me through this, I ask my kids, all right, again, walk me through this, da, da, da. And then I find the one little piece. I'm like, okay, well, let's just teach that. Everything else is great. All we got to do is work on this, and everything else is going to be fine. If I come in as the leader or the father, the mentor, the parent, however you want to call it, whatever that role is going to be, that chameleon cloak I got to put on real quick, and all I do is talk big rocks all the time, the overarching, all the little messages, the details are just going to get washed out. And that's one thing I had to learn really quick. And I love doing with my children. I love doing with other people, because now you know, Jason, you hit a very good point. You know, all the big megaphones on LinkedIn. Okay, cool. Well, you know, talk me through it. And they're gonna like, well, who's Steve Pernero asking me to talk him through it? Like, who's this guy? I'm like, well, teach me something. I'm here to learn. And then it's like, well, I just need you to click a bunch of things. Like, well, no, you know, because at the end of the day, when I'm walking around these professional resources that are provided to me, and I get to decide. I also get to decide who I think is important. I'm gonna take your word for it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm interviewing the company just as much as you're interviewing me. I'm researching you and your profile just as much as you're looking at mine. So if I've got 800 and something people that I'm following or followers, but I've only got 200 some connections, rest assured, those are very specific, and I thought those out. I don't need 500 connections,
Right.
because my time is valuable. And I've actually had people literally like, we got into a spirited debate over this, and some of them were recruiters. I'm like, okay, that's fine, no worries. Then you just helped me make a decision that's probably not where the space I need to be in. So I'm gonna go ahead and again be ridiculous, do my own thing. You're going left, I'm gonna go right, because at the end of the day, I'm betting on me. You know, I trust my assessment of me, my core values, again, how I govern myself. That's where I'm at. And like I said, like we had started this conversation, you're going to have to come up with something really, really impressive to influence me to change a belief. I'll always change my philosophies. Those are fluid. That's an ever-changing environment. That's like, you know, Bruce Lee, hey, be water. That's where your philosophies are. But again, you're going to talk me off my heart. I'd love to have the conversation with you, because I'm built for it. I'll pack a lunch and everything, and we can get after it.
So I
But
feel like I'm sitting
the
in a
end-
comedy show, because Steve, you just did. I don't know if you're aware of this, but a stand-up comic is trained that you bring the show to an end by going all the way back to your first joke.
Yep.
And so you did that in what you just said. You wrapped up your point, and then you brought it all the way back to Adrian's first quote, which I appreciate. And I apologize, I slightly cut you off there because I got excited. Did you have something else you wanted to say there?
No. That was the big thing is, and Jason said this a couple of times already, and I didn't want to jump in and kind of throw the thing off whack, but yeah, that's, you know, there's some really amazing resources out there, and there's a lot of amazing people that are willing to provide their time and be vulnerable and put their information out there. And I'm so grateful that they do. I'm grateful to be a part of this platform and create new connections today. And again, I've notes, and I'm reaching out to the other people in the other conversations that you've had, because I found little nuggets and things I want to explore with them, because their time is valuable as well. You know, and I absolutely want to respect that. But at the end of the day, you know, again, honestly, that I go, you know, we go back to our quotes and my quote. If you're out there putting this information out there as the way, and you got your Mandalorian picture, and you know, pop culture is your thing, and that's awesome. You know, I can relate to that, love it. But again, at the end of the day, Steve Pernero still gets to decide what I let in and what I let out. And again, I don't feel bad about that. And I'm going to stick to that. And, you know, which again is the people in my life, whether it be professional, my network, my mentors, you're there for a reason, because I want you there, and 100% value added for me. And those are people that I want to know what you know, because I think that I can be better for having known those things and knowing you, which is, again, why things like this are an amazing resource in today's age.
I agree. Thank you for that. So as we do come to the end, everybody's contact information will be in the comments section. Adrian, did you have anything you wanted to add while we're wrapping up?
I just want to say thank you. This was awesome. I loved it. Really what I took away was empowerment and, standing up for what we believe and being a leader to create other leaders. And so thank you very much. I was just had a great time.
I appreciate that. And one thing I would like to point out about Adrian is I'm grateful for your support. And I will tell you, as a person who creates content, and it's another story for another day after I clear it with my attorney that I won't get sued for sharing it. I started writing and sharing my opinions as a way to give back. And really, a lot of it was to give back to me because I needed to journal. I needed to clear my thoughts out of my head after a very frustrating career experience. And, I appreciate your support, and I'm singling you out specifically because you're right in front of me. But to all those people that are out there creating content, it does make a difference when you get those private notes of, hey, I appreciate what you're doing. For me personally, I've always said, if I can share a personal story and that story helps somebody else keep going, it was all worth it, because you never know who is watching and you're always on stage. And so, Adrian, you have been a phenomenal supporter. I've reached out to you to thank you privately, but I just want to publicly thank you for that. And I can tell you, I'm not the only one. There are other people out there who you have supported in small little ways that you probably don't even realize. And they've said the same thing I said to you. When I went and looked at your profile, I'm like, holy crap, how in the heck is this person impressed by anything I have to say? So thank you for that. I'm grateful.
You're too kind, but thank you. I appreciate you, all of you. And I'm so glad to connect with everybody here today. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it is. Jason, anything you want to say to wrap up?
No, listen, I think the word collaboration is just going off like a beacon in my brain right now. And so, a lot of this, as you kind of look at our individual perspectives, and I do appreciate everybody sharing in a very candid fashion. I think I would love to do this again with you all, because then we take it to the collaboration as we go through the journey together. And again, you're looking at, people that work for companies, you have, entrepreneurs, you have a lot of diversity of leadership here, but, ways that we collaborate, innovative ways to collaborate that we're doing differently today that maybe we weren't doing yesteryear, and what we've learned from that. And so everything fits together great. This has been an absolute pleasure. And I got to tell you, when you're around like-minded, passionate people, and most importantly, selfless people that really want the team to succeed and they put the team first, there's nothing more inspiring to me. And again, it's culture, culture, culture. And my CEO sent me a note the other day. We had just done our NPS scores and employee engagement surveys. And, you start diving into the science behind this and what this really means. And we just really, at Guardian Alarm, we're off the charts this year. And oh my gosh, like most people in the audience are like, okay. And I got goosebumps right now telling you the story, because as a culture guy, that winning mindset, you got to have it all the time, 24/7, 365. That's what keeps me up at night. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But we had exchanged a note, and I was like, man, that was really cool to see. And even in my own department, there was a pretty good increase. And, maybe I was probably the reason for that, because I had my own paradigm shift in my journey. And he sent me a note and he said, culture over strategy. And I was just like, yeah, I was kind of like Trevor Martin throwing up my horns. I'm like, dude, because that's the kind of stuff that I'll run through a wall, right? Like that just gets me going. And so, we got to do our jobs. We got to show up every day. You might as well get excited about it. It might as well be your passion. You might as well have a winning mindset. You might as well inspire and empower everybody around you, and win together, and learn together. And so this is great. I'm ready to go. I'm probably gonna go work out again this morning. You guys got me all fired up. So I really do appreciate the inspiration. Thank you. So
Steve, I probably should have asked you to keep a tally also of how many times we drop names in here. So Steve, did you have anything you wanted to add as we wrap up?
Yeah, just in closing, again, Jason and I think he and I would probably I'm just piggybacking off of his stuff, and there's a lot of things I never got into yet when our time slot, but he just touched on something else that I'm a big mindset guy. That's one of the biggest things that I've had to learn in my transition is, the mind controls everything. In strength and conditioning, the mind controls the body. The mind controls your actions. You got to create good habits if you're going to have good actions.
And for the
I preach
record,
that to my
Steve, I'm working on that every single day. I don't have it perfected. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a long way
100%.
from that. And so I want to be clear that I don't have it figured out, and I'm not claiming it because, we have these situations that, we get into unfamiliar territory. And as long as it's important that your colleagues know that I don't have it all figured out. I'm OJT, man. I'm on the job training. I'm learning and I'm figuring it out. But more importantly, ask for help. Go to your leaders. Seek for guidance. What could I have done differently there? Because I'm sure that we're all kind of self-monitoring. We're in our heads every day. We're evaluating our interactions to make sure, God, was I a super douche? Was I empathetic? Was I, what was I? And I'm all those things. So, I'm trying to get better and really dial it in. So I'm glad you said that because, I don't have it all figured out. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I don't either. And that's the biggest thing I try to also let my kids do. And you talk about authenticity and we talk about being vulnerable and we talk about, leading by example and things. What a better way to do that than, and I've told my kids on this, I have adult children now and I'm like, our relationship, I'm pushing it to be different.
Yeah.
I'm pushing it to be, we're having dialogue now. I'm not afraid for you to know who dad is. My parents are like, never get to know anything we did. Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
Everything's top secret. And I'm going wait a minute. I'm like, so you mean to tell me that I'm the one that's ruining the family name at this point? Like I'm the only one that does this stuff, right? So, so I've really, I've really tried to do that with my kids and be way more open with them and transparent because, again, I need them to be able to understand that I'm flawed. I am not perfect. But every day though, I work on being that 1% better. One of my strength and conditioning mentors / idols / philosophy gurus, a guy by the name of John Welber. He says, hey, life's a pile of dirt. Some days you get a spoon, some days you get a shovel, and that's all I'm doing is doing my spoon's worth of work today, or I get a shovel today. I feel a little more motivated about it. And again, PTSD doesn't help any of that, so then I got to balance all of that in my day. But I'm reading a book currently called The Upside to Your Dark Side, which I think feeds into a lot of things that we could have, the four of us could have a whole nother discussion for another hour and a half on.
I'll read
how
it.
do we deal with that? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
how do we deal with that adversity, and growth?
Yeah.
Where does growth come from? Does it come from uber positivity all the time and you never experience adversity? Or is growth a culminating event from, I went through these struggles and now I'm learning something?
So I agree with everything you said. Quite frankly, I think it seems like the four of us could just go on for hours. However, I did promise an hour and we are at an hour 30. So I want to try to wrap all this up into a nutshell. It's funny, you talk about the parents and how we have to live a different generation to produce different results. And, my parents led the same way. And I think I'm pretty sure we're all in the same generation, but I kind of doubt Adrian and Steve a little bit based on the fact that they don't look as old as us, Jason.
I know, right?
But we were raised the same way. It was, you have to live a perfect life, and there was never a discussion about what our parents did until I started spreading the word that, hey, you can spit in this cup and send it off to this company, and they'll tell you where you're from and all your genealogy stuff. And it turned out that I have family members who aren't family members. They were raised as family members. I'm like, Dad, you didn't tell me that this happened. And so what I have to say to that is I'm proud of the way I've lived my life, and I'm proud of the way they raised me, because they raised me to be better than them. And they knew why, and they never wanted to tell me why. And they had no idea that one day I'd be able to spit in a cup and find out, oh, you mean Uncle so-and-so isn't actually my uncle? Or did you know this guy is actually my uncle and he was a neighbor? And so Anyway, that's another show for another day.
Haha.
Adrian, I'll definitely have you back on for the medical side of that one. Um, So, guys, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to end this one a little bit differently than I end the other ones. Usually, I beg for anybody watching to subscribe and hit the notification bell. However, as even though we have gone long, Jason, I would like you really quickly to kind of tell us about this, and please go follow this guy on his social media platforms. He is one of the most selfless servant leaders I have met. He's constantly out there trying to help other people, help other people recover from tragedies. And so, very quickly, Jason, I'm going to share this while you tell the story about
Okay.
why this is happening.
Yeah. So again, John, thank you, and thank you to Adrian, and thank you to Steve today. Really appreciate it. But this is a life lesson here that I learned. A friend of mine, James Tippin, he's went to Waterford Kettering. He's the Lakeland football coach. He owns Tippin Fence, great company, great human being. He's a single father, and his daughter Jordan, her middle name is Darling, and it couldn't be more fitting. It's a family name, but she is a darling. And Jordan just celebrated her 18th birthday last week, and Jordan is she has special needs. She's an incredible human being. She is just nobody is a stranger. Everybody's a friend of Jordan, and she is one of the funniest kids I've ever met in my life. And she's a sweetheart. And so Jordan's had some challenges, and she's just persevered, worked very hard. She's 18 years old as of last week, but 4 weeks ago was diagnosed with cervical cancer, and and to see my buddy go through this, in being part of the experience when he told me I have to tell my daughter she has cancer, autobiographically going, oh my God, what if that was me? What would I do? And no parent, and I know everybody has their challenges in life, but no parent really should ever do that. And so, Guardian Alarm partners with Woodward Sports, and we support CS Mott's Children's Hospital. Jordan's going there for training. And so I am hosting a benefit for Jordan, June 3rd at the Clarkston Fountains. It's 7:30 to 11:30 p.m. Her uncle Ron and her cousin Zachary, they are in a band together called Wide Track, and they're going to do an acoustic set in her honor. And we just want to show our love, come together as a community. But the reason why this is so important to me, and this is a life lesson I learned many, many years ago in 2010, I believe it was, I went to an event, and my stepsister said, hey, my friend Ron's playing at this bar. You should stop by. So I did. And back then, pretty full of myself. And I saw James there. And, we were guys around town that probably were pretty full of our own BS at that stage of our life. And I found out afterwards that it was a benefit for his mother, who needed a bone marrow transplant. She had leukemia at the time. And I had seen that man and, didn't acknowledge him. And I was just there, and I left, and I found out, and I was really mad at myself. I was truly mad at myself. Like, oh my God, I could have extended a hand. I could have shook his hand. Hey, I'm sorry. I could have gave some money, and I didn't. And it bothered me. Well, I saw James about a year or two later. He crossed my path, and I grabbed him by the arm, and I said, hey, I owe you an apology. And he said, why? And I said, well, and I told him the story. And I said, I didn't go over and extend my hand to you and wish you, wish your mom well, or do anything to help. May I ask how your mom is doing? And he welled up, and I welled up. And here were two guys that probably learned a lesson, got over themselves, and really matured and came together and formed a lifelong friendship that I'll be forever grateful for. And so you never know how you can impact people. But I owe this to him. I owe this to Jordan, and I represent many people that came forward to me. How can I help? Because they felt helpless. And again, nobody should go through this. So join us June 3rd that Venmo is my Venmo, and that was a picture of James holding Jordan. So all donations are going to go to her treatment. She's going, she's in her 4th week, but she's 6 weeks of radiation and chemo therapy. And once they get through that, although she rings the bell, she's not out of the woods because they have to look at, how everything's progressed and what next steps might look like. So thank you, John, sincerely. And I did a mission for the folks in Fort Myers Beach that were devastated by Hurricane Ian, and John Doolin was the first person through the door, not only to donate money, but to donate clothes. So we raised $5,000. We had another $2,500 in, gear that we took down there, and we were spending money, and we were going to Ocean Church to help that community. And so, I've kind of adopted this life of service because so many people have given so much to me. And I'm going to be honest with you, I took it for granted. And another aha moment in this journey that it's much bigger than ourselves, and we have to do our part to help others. And that's what we're doing here for James and for Jordan Tippin. And so thank you for sharing this with the group, because every little bit helps. And gosh, it takes a village, right? So thank you.
So that's what I alluded to earlier when I said I'm going to flop these videos up. This one's going to go up today. And the one that I did earlier, I'm going to put that up tomorrow. It has a lot to do with gratitude. I'm big on Gratitude Sunday. I think it just works out the way it does. And if you don't believe, if you don't have faith, I certainly hope after watching these 2 episodes, I certainly hope you can see that differently, because things do happen for a reason. And, whatever you think that reason is, it's certainly bigger than us. So again, thank you for everybody who's still watching. I can tell you that these are people worth getting behind. And I want to thank, of course, the 3 of you for showing up on a Saturday morning for me. I'm grateful. It means more to me than you will ever know. And I hope everybody has a great rest of their, whatever day you're watching this on, have a great day.
So much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much, John. I appreciate it. Thank you to all of you. And I'll be in touch, I promise.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, gang. Thank you so much.
Yeah.